let's see. We've got a couple of questions that we're going to answer. Let's see. I'm just going to copy this and we're going to paste it over in. Let's see. Is there a section where I can have. Ooh, what does that do? Text block. What does that do? So does this actually show up on the screen? Oh, it does. Oh, that's fun. Huh. How about that? Learning some stuff. Okay, and that's good. And then let's get this other one. We had a couple of questions come in from yesterday's post about, does anyone have questions? And so I'm going to answer them. There's two, so it's not going to take so long. Although one was a little bit more in depth, but that's okay. We got some time. We have some vanilla yogurt and mixed berries, which is fine. Yeah, we've got 2 people watching. That's exciting. Hello to the 2 of you that are watching. I hope that you continue to do so. So, I mean, I talk to myself all day long without visitors. Generally not very nice, but well, sometimes nice. Not usually though. Paul, good morning. Your question was one of the questions I'm planning on answering. Isn't that exciting? Of course, I gave you the heads up that I was going to answer that on this morning's live stream to maybe entice you to watch this morning's live stream. And here we are, it worked. Never mind my roots. We'll get to that later. We probably won't. But today's shirt is a nice reminder, public service announcement that there is a new Black Sugar Transmission album available called Battered Satellite. And you should check that out on Bandcamp. If you go to blacksugartransmission.bandcamp.com, it's right there for you. It's like $7. You can listen to it before you purchase it, but it's also $7. Think of the things that we've spent $7 on. Things that maybe didn't enrich our lives. Yeah. And no, I am saying that the new Black Sugar, spending $7 on the new Black Sugar Transmission album will enrich your life. I will say that. Yeah. I have a lot of music from Black Sugar Transmission, and I can say with 1,000,000,000% certainty, my life has been enriched as a result of it. If you need life enrichment, don't talk to your doctor. Talk to your pal Sully, and he'll tell you to check out Black Sugar Transmission. Anyway, so that's that. Good morning. Paul, good morning. Proper good morning to you. Catfish, good morning to you. So, this past week, this week that's just ending, what did we do? This has really been a huge blur. I've talked many times about my poor concept of time. There have been multiple times this week that we've been very busy and we've been productive. But if I look back and go, man, I did a lot today, and then I'm like, what did we get done? What did we do? This week, a lot of we've got a lot of guitars that are in the assembly stage right now. right. We've got a lot of guitars that are in the assembly phase right now, which is a nice thing because that means that people will get their guitars, and I always like that. And that also means that we will get some money dollars as a result of completing said guitars, which I am a big fan of. As much as I would be okay with giving guitars away, I've done it. Not necessarily to, you know, famous people and whatnot, but like, you know, like one thing that Adam will often kind of like roll his eyes at me about, like we might have a body that like, so here's an example. So the second Stardust Deluxe body that I made, this probably would have been maybe 2018, I think was when I started doing the Stardust Deluxes. The first one I have, it's all ebony and it's pretty rad. The one I was making alongside of that has a Ziracody top, and it's on a mahogany body blank. And that body is ready for, I mean, it's fine. One thing that, but there are a couple of things that I've always been kind of like, I don't know about that one. I mean, like, it's like total like cosmetic stuff, but and so Adam from time to time have been like, what are you going to do with this thing? It's just been sitting here, and it has just been sitting there for years. And you know, I will say that, you know, the shop is not air conditioned, and while the wood, you know, it acclimates to the changes in temperature because it's all gradual. It's not like all of a sudden it's 100 and then in an hour later it's like 30. It's not like that. So it does acclimate. However, in that acclimation, am I shouting? I feel like I'm shouting. In that acclimation, you know, the wood is expanding and contracting and stuff like that. And, you know, maybe like the binding at the waist might not expand and contract at that same rate. So sometimes we'll get like a little bit, like the binding will, like if the wood kind of contracts in, maybe the binding doesn't always go with it. So like we might have some gaps at the waist. Super easy to fix. You just go and you're done. It is that easy. But you know, it's one of those things where it's like nobody owns this guitar. I have no real incentive to finish it right now. We could finish it and sell it. I could, but I would much rather work on the guitars that people have ordered. So this thing has been sitting, and many times, and this is just one example of this, but there are many times when Adam is, you know, like, oh, what are you going to do with this? I'm like, I don't know. Do you want it? I'm like, you can have. I don't care. You can have it. And he's always like, anyway. So point being is there are times when I'm just like, this thing's been sitting. Like, if you want it, like, I don't care. But that as a business model is a real bad idea because, you know, I aspire to make minimum wage someday. So it's kind of counterproductive to that sort of thing. Anyway, what was my point? So we were moving some stuff through. And, you know, I got crazy. I was leveling frets for a fair amount of this week, which is, yeah, turns out I'm pretty good at it. Which is, I mean, I have been pretty good at it. But anyway, so we've been doing that, just getting guitars ready to go, trying to get as much done as we can before this batch of Conspiracy Series guitars show up, which is imminent. No. So they should be delivered to me on Tuesday. And that's great. It is going to cause quite an interruption in the environment of the shop in its current layout. So there's a lot of things that need to be moved. my advice to people with their shops has always been put as many things on wheels as possible. And if there are things that can't be put on wheels, get yourself a pallet jack. So that, maybe some of those things can either be put on a pallet, or if they're on a table that is large enough to be transported by a pallet jack, that is a good way to go. My man Johnny says, good morning. And Johnny knows all about pallet jackery. Johnny is a lovely person, not just physically, but he helped move from the garage into the shop. And one of those things that Johnny was handling was the pallet jack with the CNC, and getting the CNC. It probably wasn't precarious to a pro like Johnny, but it was one of those things where, it's this very, big thing on a very big table, and it was secured, right? But not, I'm sure it was. But Johnny's like driving this thing, getting this thing out of the garage like a champ down the driveway, which is sloping like a champ onto the lift gate. It took up the entire lift gate like a champ. And because Johnny is a champ. So that's what you need to know about my man Johnny. So we've got to move a lot of things around in the shop. And I started some of that yesterday. I'm going to go into the shop for a little bit today because I've got I've got to shoot some clear coat. I thought you didn't do that. I said what I said. I got to shoot some clear coat, and I would like to do that before it gets much warmer. And, I want to do that before this stuff happens this week, this coming week, next week, in a few days. That's what I'm working with, in a few days. Because, I'm going to do my best to not shut all the custom side down while I go through the QC process. I'm going to do my best. I don't know how likely it is, but it would be nice if we could still move some of the custom stuff through its woodworking process or through the assembly and completion process while we're going through this QC process with the Conspiracy Series guitars and, all of the shipping and what have you. So I'm going to do my best. I remember we got through everything in the last shipment in about 3 weeks. This shipment size is about the same as the last shipment size, so I think we can do that. I think the nice thing is that I've seen these guitars already when I was in Korea, and I wrote down. Did I tell you all of this already? I don't know. What I did was, as I was like looking through all the guitars, I took a picture of the back of the headstock because that's where the serial number is. Really happy that they finally say like crafted in South Korea. All of the Conspiracy Series guitars up to this point don't. It was one of those things that I've been asking for ever since the first run. Progress. So that's good. So I would take a picture of the back of the headstock, because again, that's where the serial number is. And then in my little notebook, voila, mon cahier. And I would write down the last two numbers of the serial and then just quick little notes about it. So I know what's what. And so that's cool. I think that will be helpful. I put all that stuff in a spreadsheet. So this weekend, I'm going to do my best to continue the organizational steps I've been putting in place through this entire process of like order organization and things like that. So that when these guitars arrive, the first day, we're gonna unpack the pallets, and then get all of the guitars like organized in groups. Like, we're gonna put all of the Concord 22s together, all of the Concord 24s together, so on and so forth. We'll do that, and then I've got all of the. Nope, that's not it. It's in here somewhere. I've got all of the orders, printed out, and that's organized by guitar. And so we're going to go through that. And then within that, there are some people that wanted to have specific upgrades, like, put our US, pickups in them, or maybe want something tuned a little different, or maybe want a different set of strings, or so on and so forth. So we've got to categorize, we got to get all that stuff organized and things like that, and just kind of get the dealer orders, get all that stuff kind of, you see where I'm going, just the organization of it all to try and get everything ready to go and get out of here and get to you lovely people. If you didn't order one, I guess you're still a lovely person if you're one of the 9 people watching this, because that's very nice of you. But a little bummed if you didn't order a guitar. But, don't fear. Just don't. In general, do your best not to be afraid of things. There will be some extras of some guitars, not many, which is that's why it's important to get a pre-order, because that's the only way to guarantee you're going to get one. And I understand that maybe not everybody finds out about it at the same time and this sort of thing, blah, 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 blah. But anyway, whatever. Enough about that. Point being, we're going to go through these things. We're going to get them to you. I'm happy about that. I'm also happy that there are guitars that are going outside of the US. We've got a dealer in Canada, Guitar Brando, which I'm excited about. I'm excited to work with him. Capital Guitars in Minnesota came on. Obviously, they're inside the US. Excited to work with them. So we've got some new dealers, and that's cool. Sinister Hand Guitars in Denver. They're getting some stuff, and that's cool too. So, there will be, if you didn't pre-order one, there are things that are going to be available. One thing I think will be helpful is when we have the actual photos of the guitars versus mock-ups. Mock-ups are definitely helpful, but, it's not going to compare to a picture. So I think that's, I'm looking forward to having these things, and that's good. Diesel brother, good morning. How are you, sir? Hank, good morning to you. So that's what's happening with that. We're going to go through those things, get them on the way, make the extras available. I might set some aside to be like little Conspiracy Series Plus guitars. What's a Conspiracy Series Plus? Well, that's when maybe we've got, some extra, and I want to go, wouldn't it be a gas if we made that in a different color? Wouldn't it be something? Wouldn't that be something? So who knows? That's the thing. You never know. So good morning, Keith. How are you? So as promised, I'm going to answer some questions. Paul had a question. I hope he's still here. How do I get rid of here? Can I get rid of, let's put Paul's question in here first, because Greg had a question, but I don't know if Greg is watching. I know Paul is or was watching at some point. So I'm going with what I know, and I'm just going to paste this question in here real quick. Let's do this. What happens if we apply this? Paul asks, can a 24-75 scale length neck be made with a straight headstock? So straight headstock meaning like how we do the 622s. Like that. Or at least that's my interpretation of the question. Straight headstock, non-tilt back. The answer is yes, of course it can. You can, if you think about it, basses are not 24 3/4 scale, but it's a different scale than maybe 25 1/2. You can make the orientation of your headstock, be it straight, where you're working with one flat blank, or angled. The scale, generally speaking, and I can't really think of any reason why it would impact your construction. So yeah, that's the fast answer. You absolutely can make your necks whatever scale you want, because that's what we can do as people. We can come up with an idea and then we can make it happen, for better or for worse. But yeah, you absolutely can. I hope that answers your question. And if I didn't get it right, if I didn't get your questions right, please feel free now to clarify in the comments of this chat, and then I will, embellish upon that. Did I get it right? Did I understand your question the way that you intended? I hope so. I truly do. But yeah, man. Have you ever seen, like Warmouth, they make short scale conversion necks for like Strats. So like if you've got a 25 1/2 scale Strat and maybe you want a short scale, or they do, I think they do that, but they also do like baritone conversion necks and stuff like that. So yeah, you can do that, and they still use the same, I think they probably have different headstock options for that. But yeah, your scale doesn't need to determine the construction style as it relates to your headstock. The angle of it or the not angle of it. So I hope that. No, not at all. So the string tension, like what we're talking about is you want to make sure that you have enough downward pull on the nut as the strings leave the nut. That's the word I'm looking for. And different manufacturers use different angles. For example, like Jackson does a 13-degree angle on their headstocks. Some others use a 10-degree. We use a 10-degree. It can go the other way. I know like vintage Les Pauls can be like, I'm sorry, I'll just say Gibsons can use and like 14, some have been 17. I don't know if they still do. I don't know their lives. I don't care. But my point is, one of the things that you want to accomplish is making sure that if you have a tilt back headstock, you want to make sure that the strings have enough downward pressure as they come off of the nut. Why is that important? That is a good question. I wish I just had a loose neck. I don't. It's quite tight. So let's just use this as an example because I can just put this on there we go. Is there a way I can better angle this? I'm sure that there are many ways I can better angle this. Okay, so what I'm talking about string pull is the angle of the string from when it leaves this point here. You can see we've got a nice, let's see, it's hard to see with my hands in the way, but you can see right there, damn it, I'm not going to get that weatherman job. Going this way, you've got a nice downward angle. As we get further out, you see we've got a little help from a string tree. Now, one of the things that you can do is install staggered height tuners. And what those are is these two are taller than these two, and these two are taller than these two. Why? Well, the idea, like, hey, who ordered the tuna on toast? The idea is with staggered heights, as it gets further away, your height gets shorter because the idea is, well, you'll have if the hole that the string goes in on the post, if it's lower, it's going to give you that string break. Now, I will tell you, theoretically, you can get away without having a string tree for this style of construction. You can get away with it, but sometimes on your further away strings, on this case, how about let's get the damn guitar in the shop. In this case, the low strings are the longer ones because this is a reverse headstock, because I think reverse headstocks are cooler. Also safer for me to make by hand, but we've talked about that ad nauseum. One of the things that can happen is you can get a little teeny tiny bit of like an overtone, like a metallic, almost a sitar-ish kind of sound that can be quite maddening. And of course, it goes away when you fret a note, because when you fret a note, you're kind of taking the nut out of the discussion. And if you're, generally, if you hit the string open and you're getting a buzz, that's usually an indicator of your fret slot is too low because your string is hitting the top of the fret. But if after checking your height at the first fret, easy way to do that if you don't have a string action gauge or something like that is you just hold the string down at the third fret, and you just look at the space between the top of the fret and the bottom of the string, and you just kind of just tap to see if you're getting any kind of deflection, if you can press the string down to the fret. If you're holding it down at the third fret and the string is sitting on the fret, your nut slots are probably a little too low, but that's a whole other thing. We're not going to get into that. So if we've confirmed rather that our nut slot height is fine, or nut slot depth is fine, but again, we're still just getting this noise when the string is open. If you maybe kind of press down, you will find that there wasn't enough downward pressure and the string was vibrating in the nut slot. Now, because it didn't have enough downward pressure. That's how I'm just going to cap that off. So the first few batches of 622s didn't have a string tree on them. And then I just started kind of adding them just for funsies. Now, you don't with staggered tuners, you don't need to like screw this all the way down to the face of the headstock. You just need enough to get rid of that. Oh, that's a fun noise. You just need enough downward pressure to seat that string in that slot and hold it tight. That's all we want in life, to be held securely in place. So my point is the distance, your scale length, how long your strings are, the distance from here to here, that doesn't really matter. So as you can make a short scale, and it'll be fine. That the scale won't influence your downward pressure here. Yeah, and usually with angled necks, that kind of alleviates the need for this sort of thing, because as the neck is angled down and away from this surface, it kind of gives you that. It gives you that downward string pressure. Other things that can help that is, like, if you don't have locking tuners, you give it a couple of extra wraps, a little couple of string wraps at the post, and as the string wraps, more and more, it's going to bring the string height down. So I think that's pretty common with basses. So yeah, downward string pressure. Denny, good morning to you. Pitchy, but still have the voice of an angel. Thanks, Jeff. Now, we have another question. That's exciting. Let me go over here and get it. Now, I don't know if Greg Wakefield is in this chat. I don't know. I don't know his life. But we're going to find out. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to answer his question. And he's got a few. So this is kind of, this is cool. Because I like, multiple questions. I also like coffee. And that has cooled off significantly from when I poured it. That's what happens. So Greg has a number of questions, and he says so up front. A number of them, actually, and I hope to get some hands-on experience building one soon. Do your guys build them in batches or one by one? Do you have a dedicated QC, or does everyone do QC for the instruments they build? Do you have written work instructions with the various machine settings for each type of guitar? So let's start with the first question. Do your guys build them in batches or one by one? It depends. So we do the 622s in batches. Generally, like with bodies, because they're all the same. So if we've got to make a batch of 622s, I will prepare the blanks to be placed in the correct spot on the CNC. And then either I, or more common these days, Adam will run the machine and machine those bodies. So while that is happening, this kind of segues into, I think, the last part. Do you have written work instructions with the various machine settings for each type of guitar? Yes. And what that means is if Adam is going to run, machine some 622s, or any other thing for that matter, we have a binder. Now, it used to be something like this, but it was pink sparkle and it said, "I literally can't." That was a gift from Stike, and I really, I love that. That has all of the CNC programming notes, and basically all that is, one of the things that I did to help future Sully was the way that is I came up with a way to name the tool paths in a manner that will tell me what bit I need. And then I would write down in my notebook, what tool paths to run. And all a tool path is, it's a text file. So basically, I've got the drawing, the CAD drawing of the guitar open on my computer, and this is the thing that I want to make. And your tool paths tell the machine how to do it. Now, the machine doesn't care what you want it to do. It's gonna do whatever you put into it. So it's not gonna go, hey, this doesn't quite seem right. Are you sure that you want it? It's always like, all right, man, that's what you want me to do. That's what I'm gonna do. Many times it works out just great. Sometimes it escalates quickly. My idea in general is, my plan when we're making a body is we do all of the operations on the back first. And we always start out with the smallest bit. So if we're doing like a 622, the smallest bit would be a 1/16 inch bit to do these little holes around the trim cavity, these 6 little holes. Now, you might say, can't you just drill that? Yes, but that's extra time. It probably takes less time for you to drill it. We're not doing that, because I want this thing to be as complete as possible when it gets off the machine. So, and within that methodology or way of thinking, there are certain trade-offs that you need to decide upon, like maybe like rounding the body over. You can do that on the machine, but that is one of those things where it is infinitely faster to do that on a router table by hand. So I'm going to skip that. So we do the smallest bit first, which is these guys, and then we move up to a 1/8 inch end mill, and that does the doinks for the neck bolt holes, and then we go up to a 1/4 inch bit, and that does the recesses for the screw ferrules, because I don't use neck plates. And then it will go up to a 1/2 inch bit that will then cut this part out. This is 2 operations. It's going to do this part first, and it's 2 operations because these are two different depths. This cavity, we have it go just under 3/4 of an inch, and then this cavity this looks like about 1.5. And I can eyeball this because I know this is 1 3/4, and there's a little bit of a lip that's usually about 1 5/8. So it's about 1/8 of an inch. So it does this, and then it does this. And so this is 2 operations. And what I do is and these are 2 different tool paths, but you can export these 2 different tool paths into one tool path. So with these back operations, let me scroll down and see if we have any. Okay. With these operations, I like to make these things easy enough for me to know what bit to use. So this is called 60 holes. It's not making 60 holes, and I know that that's just what I call them. I can't. It's an inside joke. And then the 1/8 inch screws holes. That's 125 holes, because 1.125 is 1/8 of an inch, and I'm using an 1/8 inch bit. So if I see the 125, I'm like, oh, okay. And then these that are done with the 1/4 inch bit are called 25 all. And the reason why it's all is it's more common on the face side of the operations for that one bit to do multiple processes, and I'll get to that in a second, or maybe in a minute, in a little bit. And then to do this, we're going to call this 50 all. 50, so 1/2 inch, 0.5, 50. And then we want to do the contours. And that is done with a ball nose bit. And that is in a contours folder, and that is just called all. And what that means is, so for this, it's two parts. The roughing kind of makes it look like it's steps down, like a set of stairs. And then the smooth goes in and knocks those stairs away and makes it nice and smooth. And then it comes over here and does the same thing. But because you can take multiple tool paths that use the same bit and export that all into one, it goes into the contours folder, and it's called all. And to go further into this, like all of the holes are in a folder called holes. This is a pocket, so this is in the pockets folder, so on and so forth. And so now we've got the back of the body done, or the operations for the back of the body are done. So we've got our holes here, we've got our pocket here, we've got our the neck bolt holes and the recesses for the bushings, and we've got the contours. So the reason why we do this in this order is for one reason, for me, going smallest bit to the largest bit makes sense. And we do the contours last on this side because when this thing gets flipped over, what is the first thing we've got to do? We can do this right away. We don't have to change the height or anything like that. And so we can just run, and it's going to do the roughing pass and the finishing pass for this. And then we go back to the beginning, back to the idea of using the smallest bit. And so we do. Now, in this one, we've got holes, again, that need to be done. Can't you just put the pickguard on and drill the holes? Of course I can. But if I don't have to, if I can have that done in advance, that's just, I like that. That's why one of the things, sometimes people will ask if they can order like a 622, and it's like, I never put this back plate on. Like, this has never seen a back plate. Can we just not have the holes? And I'm like, no. Only on a 622. Like, if you're ordering an actual custom, sure. But since we make these things in batches, how hard is it to just not run one? It's not hard. It's hard to remember to not do that. So it's like, I need to make these things as easy for me to make, and the less onesie-twosie things that we can do, the better. So anyway, we flip this over, and then it does the 60 holes, which do this. And then we go to the 125 all, which will do our post holes, and we'll cut out the top side of the trim route. And then we go to 375 jack, which is the output jack. So it's 375. This is done with a 3/8 bit. Is this interesting? And then it goes to 50 all, which takes care of the swimming pool route, the channels for the legs, or the pickup legs, and then it does the control cavity here, and then it does the neck pocket. And then we do the truss rod access, which is it's a round nose bit, and it just goes zhump, 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 and it just cuts a channel. And so now we've got all of the face operations done. And so now we got to cut it out. So remember, we're going from smallest to largest. We're doing our 16th inch holes here. And then we're doing the 25. We're going to go up to a 1/4 inch. There's no operations on here that are done with a 1/8 inch bit. So we skip that. We go straight to a 1/4 inch bit, take care of that. We go to 3/8 and take care of this. And then we go to the 1/2 inch, and then it takes care of all this. And then that sets us up for the final 2 passes, which is cutting out the perimeter. That is done with 2 bits. There's a roughing bit. Both of these bits are 1/2 inch diameter. So part of the reason, I'm trying to minimize the amount of tool changes that we have to do, because we don't have an automatic tool changer. We are the tool changer. So, want to try and minimize that. Like, I don't want to do like, let's cut out the neck pocket using the 1/2 inch bit. And then let's do the bridge operations using the 1/4 inch bit. And then we'll go up to, so just try and, kind of organize these things. So you're going smallest to largest. So we've got a roughing bit, which goes, does the perimeter in steps, 1/16 of an inch outside of, does it 1/16 of an inch oversized because it's a roughing bit. Brett, no, I don't have an automatic tool changer. So the roughing, it gives a rough, perimeter, and you've got all your cutter marks. And then we change it to a finishing bit, which is a different bit. And so what that's going to do is, instead of going in steps down, it's going to do the whole thing in one pass. It's a cleanup pass. So it's getting rid of all of these cutter marks. And so you may remember that the original, the roughing was a 1/16 of an inch oversized all the way around. And so this finishing pass, you don't want to take off a whole lot with it because it's a finishing pass. You want to just take off just a little, just shearing off the surface just to give you a clean edge. So that is, that takes 2 passes. It comes in a 30-second, and then it does one final, a 30-second more. That's the word I was looking for. And then you get your final shape. And that is how we make 622 bodies. Then we take it off of the machine. The sides are sanded to 180 because there's a little cleanup that needs to be done. And then we do the roundovers, sand it up to 220, good to go. Drill the appropriate holes and whatnot. So that was the answer to that part of Greg's question, where we talked about, do you have written work instructions with the various machine settings for each type of guitar? Absolutely. We have to do that. One of the things that is an issue, and by making this binder, so there's a bind, like if you're going to make a 622 body, there's a sheet. This is what you got to do. Here you go. It's everything. And so like it will say, run this bit, put this bit in, run this tool path. And what that tool path is going to do is this, because I learned early on that, like when Adam was learning to use the machine, he can go ahead and I'll put that bit in there and I'll tell it to run this thing, but I have no idea what that thing is supposed to run. And I don't know if it's doing the right thing. Case in point, if we're making a left-handed guitar, we've got to do all tool paths for that. And it's still a head fuck, because, we're doing the backs of the bodies. And when we do the backs of the bodies first, I will write on the body blank that I'll write like over on this side that the belly contour is supposed to be here. And the control cavity is supposed to be here, not on this side, because it's a left-handed guitar. Even when we get to that point where it's going to run the belly carve here, when it doesn't come and do it on this side, it still freaks me out. Even though I wrote on here, hey, dickweed, it's going to do this over here. It's still one of those things where it's like, oh, that doesn't look right. That doesn't look right. So I did kind of add that, when you're running this program with this bit, these are the things it's going to do. I talked about the 25 all, why I call it 25 all, like on the face of a guitar that maybe doesn't have a pick guard. What the 25 all will do, like say on this, on this Trella, the 25 all will do the controls there and there. It will do the Floyd post, god damn it. And then it will also do, I'm so bad at this. It will do the pickup. Oh yeah, there we go. It will do the profile for the pickup cavities. And what I mean by that is it will do like an outline of a pickup cavity, And the reason why I do that with a 1/4" bit versus the 3/8 bit, which we generally use to cut the pickup cavities, is because it has a tighter radius. And when we're doing something that might have direct mount pickups, say like the Astro, we want those to be a nice tight kind of vibe. So yeah, that's why like 25 all, it's going to do multiple operations. And yes, that is true. Okay. So 622s are really the only things that we do in batches. Although, like if we need to make a bunch of neck blanks, like we'll do those. That's on one part of the fixture, and Adam will run those. And I have individual things for like if it's a set neck, or if it's 22 or 24 frets, because if it's a set neck, that will change the drop off from the edge of the fretboard, because on the 24 fret neck, the fretboard is longer. If we're making something that's got a Floyd, the neck shaft is longer because of the locking nut. You need more of a locking nut platform. And so what that means is when it cuts the drop for the headstock, what I mean by that is cuts the angle in the face of the headstock, it's not doing it in the same spot. You got to scoot it up to a different location for a Floyd. So like if we need to, if we need to make neck blanks, like we'll do all of that, at once. I try and make it so, like if we're doing fretboards, we'll do multiple fretboards. But like we don't build outside of like 622s. We don't build like custom orders in like a batch. Like we'll make fretboards. So let's say we've got 5 custom orders that we're going to work on right now. So we'll make all of those fretboards. And those things have to be customized because like maybe one is 22 fret, maybe one is 24, maybe one has a locking nut, maybe one doesn't. Maybe they all have different inlays. Maybe some have spoke wheel truss rods. Maybe some don't. So like I've got all of these like individual tool paths like on this fixture for the fretboards. It's bay 1, bay 2, bay 3, bay 4. And I will write, on a piece of paper or something like what fretboards we're making for that day. So like in bay 1, it is a 24 fret non-locking, so no Floyd shelf. It's got hollow block inlays. It's maple. And maybe it has a spoke wheel adjustment. So that's got all of those notes in there. Maybe bay 2 is something different, so on and so forth. And so in our tool paths, it's also broken up into different segments. So let's say you've got your profiles, and what that means is the perimeter cuts. So like, and it will be like your profiles, you've got non-locking and locking. And also, you've got profiles, then you've got your scales, like 25.5 or 24 3/4. It's different. The profile is different. You might have binding on that fretboard. So that profile is going to be a little narrower to allow for the binding to be glued on. So there's all of these like subfolders. So when Adam is making these fretboards, he'll see on my note that bay 1 is a maple fretboard that's 22 frets and it's got hollow blocks, and it has a spoke wheel adjust. So like the idea is first thing we're going to do, is fly cut them all so they're nice and flat. Then we put the locator pins in the holes for the locator pins in the back, and then they go face down onto the table into their located slots on the table. And then from there, we'll do the inlay pockets. And so if bay 1 needs hollow blocks and bay 2 needs slashes and bay 3 is Concord inlays, we're in the inlay section. So he needs to go and run those according to the what that fretboard is going to be. So that is done in a batch. And then, the inlays are glued in, and then we do the radius. And because then that gets everything, that cuts the inlay, whatever. It's just the way we do stuff. So that's done in a batch. Yes, but like sometimes the bodies are generally done kind of one at a time, but it's like we're making bodies this week. Yeah. So do I have a dedicated QC? That is me. Does everyone do QC for the instruments they built? No. Do you have written work? Okay, yeah. I think I have answered all components of that question. It's a good question. Yeah, but so when the body is done, uh, David sands it. That's his domain. He sands the sides, gets the round over done. Um, if it's got binding, I'll cut the binding channel after the sides are sanded because I want to make sure that that part is done because the binding channel is dependent on the edge because there's a little bearing that rides this side. So it makes sense to make sure this is all sanded out first so it's riding along a nice smooth edge. And then it's like I'll cut the binding channel and then I will bind it. And then David scrapes the binding, gets it all flush. And then if once he's got that sanded to 220, I will look at it and make sure that all of the roundovers are consistent. Make sure the binding is scraped, flush, so on and so forth. With necks, when the machining is done, I still handle the majority of that. So like I'll get the carbon fiber rods in the neck. I'll get the truss rod installed. I will glue the fretboard on. I will get the fretboard, all the cutter marks out of the fretboard, so we can then press the frets in. I press the frets in. Usually at that time, it will go over to David, who will then get the frets flush and beveled with the edge of the fretboard, and then David will get or if it's got binding, like I'll bind the headstock before the fretboard is glued on, of course. And then, so then it's given to David to kind of get that all sanded, flush, smooth where it needs to be. And then I look and make sure everything is where it needs to be. And then if it's a set neck guitar, then I'll glue that in. And then it goes back to David to kind of do final pre-paint sanding. Once that's done, I look at that again to make sure that that's gone over and it's where we need it to be. Because in a lot of that seems like, oh man, you're really standing over poor David. And maybe. But the thing is, if he's like sanding stuff all day, just speaking from experience, your hands get tired. And like you do that stuff all day, you don't see everything. So we come back the next day and see, okay, so we've got this stack. Let's go through everything and let's look at, edges. Are they smooth? And is everything where it needs to be? And if so, great. And if not, we'll kind of circle it in pencil and we'll kind of focus on that area. So that's, then when the paint process is complete, oh shit, I got less than a minute left. When paint process is complete, I get all that ready for assembly. We get the guitar assembled. Adam usually does most of the wiring. I'll do some of that too. And then final assembly, like Adam will get it close, dialed in. He'll handle like intonation and stuff like that. And then I kind of do the last checks. That is our process. Whew. Yeah, it's a good question. I hope that you enjoyed that. Let's see. Are you doing vacuum hold down? Not yet. David, yes, David is the Sandman. Roller bearing for the binding. Are you doing that by hand? No, it's it's in the machine, and then I turn the machine on, and then I just I run the body like a pin router around it. That's it. Have a good day. I gotta go. You guys